This is episode 2 with special guests, Ryan and Caroline Luelf.
Welcome to My Kid Cures Cancer. My name is Ryan Sternagel, former regular guy turned dadcologist, cancer coach, and health advocate. Each week we'll talk to a new expert on a particular aspect of beating cancer or human optimization to bring you one step closer on your path to true health. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now let's dive into this valuable, life-saving information which you're not going to hear about in a mainstream hospital.
Alright friends, when healing from cancer, we all know what it's like to read the books, watch the documentaries, spend hours online to load ourselves up with information that we tend to feel pretty good about. But the more practical questions that are, okay, now exactly what do I do, how do I implement it, and moreover, how do I afford it, can leave many feeling lost without a map, or even too intimidated to take that first step, which is why I'm so excited to have our guests Ryan and Caroline Luelf on today, as they have been masterfully navigating this maze for well over a year now and have seemingly strolled out the other side, better for having gone through it. Ryan Luelf is 36 years old from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's married to his high school sweetheart of almost 17 years, Caroline. He has 3 kids, Addison, Atlanta, and Arthur. He calls them the A-Team. At age 35 in October of 2015, with 0 prior medical history, he was diagnosed with stage 4 advanced lymphoma cancer. The medical community said that there was no cure and that he had a better chance of dying from the chemo within the first 6 months than he did from the cancer. Ryan chose an alternative path, and just 14 months later, his latest PET scan revealed cancer freedom. He has shared his adventure with cancer publicly as it unfolded from day one. He credits God's grace, the support of his wife, a team of health advocates, and the entire Facebook community for being the support he needed to do what it takes to get through the toughest circumstance of his life. All you need to know about Caroline is this: behind every great man is an even greater woman. Nothing could be as true as she is the brains behind this team and truly went all in with Ryan to save his life. She's been with Ryan for over 21 years and credits their revelation of God's unconditional love as the guiding force in going from stage 4 to no more. And this interview really was just jam-packed full of actionable strategies and also philosophies that I think all of us can take with us on our quest to health that are really going to make a difference. You know, Ryan's strategy of only learning things that he needed to know and leaving the rest up to those he trusted. How Ryan and Caroline's strong interest in personal development, just in a general sense, prepared them for what was to come. Lots of symptoms and other red flags that those of us on the preventative side can be sure to keep an eye out for. Their thoughts on chemotherapy and how they're actually more open to it now after having healed without it. How they navigated their roles as patient and support person and worked through disagreements on the best route to take. The many incredible and diverse benefits they've received from putting their lives out in the open, their incredible success fundraising on that note, and lessons learned that anyone can follow. This might be the most important part of the interview. And also the diet they incorporated, which was actually centered around fruit and why they think that is so important, the products and therapies they incorporated, and the tests that they used. Lastly, I do want to mention our Patreon account. If you like this information that we provide, if you want to support us in our mission and keep us going, consider buying us a figurative cup of coffee every month, $5. Just something small like that. We know from fundraising that just these little amounts do add up, especially if it's on a consistent monthly period. And that money actually may well go to paying for the coffee it takes to get up at 4 in the morning and produce all this content that you see here in front of you. So if you feel so inclined, you can hop over to mykidcurescancer.com/crowd sponsor, all one word, to get the details there. All right, enough out of me. Let's get to the interview with Ryan and Caroline Luelf, which I had a great time recording. This was actually conducted shortly after they had vacationed here in Park City, and we had gotten to hang out a bit and get to know each other. But I still had no idea just how well researched they were, and really just how much thought they had put into the big picture of how to beat cancer. They really have every angle considered. between the physical and the mental and emotional side. These two individuals really have it just kind of locked in, and I'm so excited to bring you the information that you're about to hear. I got so much out of it, and I hope you do too. Let's get to it.
Ryan and Caroline, how are you today?
We are good. How are you, buddy?
I'm quite well, and I'm really excited to get to talk to you guys like this. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We feel the same way about you all. So,
I just have to say that you guys recently came out here on maybe what you could call a celebration trip to Park City over the holidays, and we got to do some snowboarding together. Ryan and I, and Caroline actually went with Teddy as well. And at lunch, when we were eating lunch, Ryan pulls out his big bag of supplements, and I am, of course, naturally curious and ask what he's taking, and he looks at me and he says, "I have no idea." And Addison, your son, was with us and said, Mom packs them all. He doesn't know what he takes. And so I thought, one, that's a man who really trusts his wife. Kudos for that. And two, I immediately knew that I had to get Caroline on the interview as well.
Yeah.
Because I think she's going to have the answers to a lot of what I want to know. So,
well, You know what they say, the key to living a great life is to remain a kid even after you're an adult.
I like that. Blind faith, I suppose.
Absolutely. I just didn't want to take up any space in my brain that was unnecessary. I mean, that's really the honest to God truth. Like, I've thought about this many times, Ryan. If I had not had Caroline, I don't just automatically go, oh, well, then I wouldn't have made it. Like, I'm not trying to take anything away from the amazing things that she's done for me, but I promise you, I would have found another way. I would have found someone else to be her. I would have dove in myself. I wanted to live so bad. But since I had her, I got taught by Albert Einstein a long time ago that if you don't need to know something, don't fill up the space in your brain unless it's absolutely necessary. And the truth was it wasn't necessary. I had so many other things to focus on. I didn't need to know what I was taking. She was the one studying my organs, studying my blood work, making sure we were on the path to healing, killing the cancer. And I just needed to make sure I was motivated every day to take the pills and drink the stuff that doesn't taste very good and work on my mental side and visualize where I was headed and endure the pain and go to treatments and get the IVs and get another coffee enema in and do the sauna. And that was mentally challenging enough, let alone trying to remember all the supplements I was taking. And that's the honest God truth. No, it really is. But that doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. If you're wired differently than me and you wanted to know and you needing to know actually helped you do it, then awesome. Like that's the uniqueness of each individual journey and story. But I just want people to understand, like, there was a method to that madness.
That's incredible. And I do want to dive in a bit deeper into what exactly, you worked on yourself in terms of, the mental stuff and how you kept yourself going and all that. But, let's back up for just a minute, just so people can get a better idea of the Luelfs and who you are and how you came to be where you are and all that. Could you tell us just a bit about yourselves and your life, pre-diagnosis, the chain of events that took place to lead you to realize that you were dealing with this cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, so I can start with that. We were definitely, in one sense, the typical American family that we may not have the 9-to-5 job, but we obviously worked a business and kids, activities, always the busy lifestyle. So therefore, we also had the standard American diet lifestyle, especially Ryan. I was always trying to do things to help our family get healthier by the food that we were eating, the smoothies we were drinking and things. But Ryan, especially enthralled in work and in activities and coaching our oldest son's sports, he was like, oh, I'll just eat whatever. So that's just how our life had been for the 10 years previous is we were just going about life, doing the best we knew how at the time, wasn't really taking a whole lot of time to even think about what we were doing in the sense of our lifestyle when it comes to health. We were just going along, just not really thinking and just eating and doing. And we thought we were doing pretty good. I remember we laugh now because we were like, well, we know enough not to eat at McDonald's, so we'll just eat at Chick-fil-A. That's better. Eating French fries from Chick-fil-A is that much better than eating French fries from McDonald's. I mean, that's what we were led to believe because we weren't really thinking about what we were eating and how we were going about things on the health side of things.
You don't know what you don't know. That's for sure.
Exactly. And if you don't take the time to stop and think, you just automatically do what you've always done. So, the one thing though in our life that we had figured out in other areas is that we were always willing to make things happen. We were always willing to figure things out. So because we were more of an entrepreneur side, we have obviously had failures. There's been times where we failed miserably in business and go, okay, well, we won't be doing that again, and started up again and kept moving. So even though on the health side, we had not obviously figured a lot of things out, there was still always a motivating factor in other aspects of life that when we were hit with something, we were always had the attitude of, okay, well, we'll figure it out and we'll keep moving forward. That's what we've always known to do. So I do think in that sense, we were prepared in a mental way for what was getting ready to hit us at the end of 2015. We just didn't know about what health really means.
Are there any other indications you can see or themes in your life that were kind of preparing you for, for what was ahead? Like looking back, sometimes I get the feeling that, my whole life had been preparing me for this past couple of years. I'm always curious to hear if there's anyone else thinks the same way.
Yeah, I think there was probably many milestone turning points along the way, but a big one was when I was 19 years old, Caroline was 18. I got introduced by an acquaintance to the industry of network marketing, and I got invited to an opportunity meeting one night. And I was not really enjoying college, and up to that point in my life, I had never even really heard of the idea or concept of reading books or listening to audios, or that you could self-develop or grow, or that you could be in control or power of your life and your destiny. You could change your thinking. Like, all that was foreign to me. And I have amazing parents, and I'm so grateful for my upbringing, and they loved me and they provided for me and they took care of me, but that just wasn't something that was on their radar. So at that point, I got introduced to the world of you could be successful, you could become more, you could tap into the power within. And then over time, I got into deeper revelation of even the spiritual realm and the connection of whether it's God, the divine, higher power, creator of the universe, whatever, terminology people like to use. And I look back now and I go, oh my gosh, we just literally, the trajectory of our entire life changed the night that I went to that opportunity meeting. Not overnight, but the next thing you know, we were listening to cassette tapes. You remember those? I literally remember listening to a guy named Tom Hopkins, and I listened to him for hours and hours and hours, and he taught me the art of asking questions, and he helped me flourish in my sales career over the years, I remember reading a book that actually my son Addison is reading right now called The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. And it's one of my all-time favorites. And in fact, it's an incredible book because my 11-year-old is devouring it. He loves it. And it's like 7 key principles of success from these famous people. Like, it's like this character, and he goes and he gets to meet Anne Frank, and he gets to go meet Teddy Roosevelt, right? And several other incredible people. And it's like, this would be the wisdom or the advice that they would give you. And so all of that sent us down a path. And so whether it's been seminars or events or podcasts or audios or CDs or books, we just, on some level, not like not trying to compare to anybody else, but on some level, we just kept looking for more answers that would help us live a better life or have more peace or be able to deal with issues or work challenges out in our marriage, or how, I mean, even like, how do we do parenting, right? There's no manual that comes out with your firstborn that says this is how you do it. So all of that, I think, prepared us, because then we took that exact same approach to, all right, planet Earth has hit us with this diagnosis. There's got to be a way to get through it. Surely other people have done it. Let's figure it out.
So leading up to the diagnosis, how did you get your diagnosis? What was wrong? And then also looking back, were there any, red flags that should have maybe, you should have caught on to early? Well, I wouldn't say should have, but knowing what you know now, that might have tipped you off a bit earlier if you knew what to look for.
Yeah, hindsight, there was some red flags. But just what happened pre-diagnosis was in the spring to early summer of 2015, Ryan had a couple lymph nodes swell up underneath in the neck below the tongue area. And, there's so many reasons why a lymph node in that area will swell up. So, not a big deal. We didn't pay any attention to it. I did some quick Google and I thought, well, he's been kind of sick. We just got over the winter season, he's been sick and whatnot. Maybe he just kind of needs to take his time to go back down. So then in August, we noticed about 2 more swole up.
Big one right here.
A big one
underneath
the chin. And it was kind of like, well, they aren't going away. What's going on? So Ryan did see our primary care physician, who ordered, lab test. All his blood panel came back normal. Did an ultrasound that just said, yeah, he's got some swollen lymph nodes around the neck and underneath, around the neck area. And so the doctor just said, he goes, I'm not sure what it is, but we probably need to get this more looked at. I'm going to refer you to ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor, who could just kind of take it from there. Because there was no other visible signs from the outside.
I was having some night sweats, but we weren't making the connection.
Well, and you didn't tell me. Ryan was having night sweats at night, but he wasn't really telling me. And so he didn't know that any of this.
Can I interject though? I do remember though you saying you thought you felt more heat from me sometimes at night, or you just felt like, but I mean, now it seems a little more obvious, but I mean, I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So when Ryan had no medical history. So other than just maybe getting sick here and there, kind of like most people get sick here and there, he's never broken arm. He's never had any kind of surgery prior to this, nothing. So his medical history was basically non-existent. So that's why there was really hindsight.
And I was playing tennis all the time.
He was right in that summer, he had actually started even taking an interest in doing healthier things, like eating salads, like very basic salads.
I was getting up earlier
and walking,
eating apples.
So he was already making some little changes there. They're not anything dramatic whatsoever, but just little changes. So it wasn't until right after Labor Day that it just seemed like all of a sudden, as the people say, all these symptoms came about. He had these headaches that would literally wake him up. Usually you go to sleep and your headache alleviates.
Resides.
With him, it was waking him up. And so he was having, obviously, then pains. And that's where all of a sudden we knew something was up. At that point, he was actually in training in Oklahoma City, and we live in Tulsa, so about an hour and a half away. And he was gone, and he called me. He's telling me he's got these symptoms. And I'm going, what in the world is going on? I don't know what to think. Because he never had headaches before. He hadn't.
Literally, like I didn't even hardly remember a time where I always remember thinking I can't relate to people who are always saying I got these headaches because I didn't have them, so I didn't know, and then I got these and they were diagnosed as vascular headaches, and wow, it gave me a lot more empathy for people who deal with migraines and stuff.
Yeah, so as that first week after Labor Day went on, we knew something was up. Ryan was trying different things, like getting reading glasses, and we put it on Facebook. What do you recommend? A couple different things. And so when I went and saw him that weekend during the 2-week training, I knew something was wrong. The one thing that was in the back of my head, which I hadn't shared with him at that moment, is Ryan's dad, 9 years prior, had been diagnosed with brain cancer, and one of the biggest signs that led to that diagnosis was headaches. So I was thinking, surely it can't be brain cancer. I'm going, no way, it just can't be. And in my head, but it was tucked in the back of my head, going, no, I can't even go there. But later on that second week, as the symptoms actually gradually got worse, we have a friend who's an eye surgeon in Oklahoma City who had overcome cancer for himself years back. Say, hey, Ryan, why don't you come to my office before I see my other patients? Let me just look at your eyes. Let me just see if anything's going on. And that day on a Thursday, Thursday morning, Ryan went and saw the doctor, and he said, Ryan, you have some swollen lymph nodes. One's called the virchow, which is on the clavicle. He goes, that's usually a sign of cancer. And that was the first time when it was like, oh, this might not be good. And from there started the whole trail of the diagnosis. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And were there any other things looking back that, you might not, you might have caught knowing what to look for, or was that it?
No, we look, obviously pictures are very telling.
Inflammation.
Ryan he's always been on the skinnier side, and he had gained a little bit of weight, but everybody would call him, a normal skinny guy. So therefore, people automatically assume skinny means healthy, which is very incorrect. But even though he was not fat or really had much on him, his face was obviously inflamed. It was very obvious on pictures that he was inflamed. Like, there was just different things that were showing up that we can look back and see. Is there any other specific ones?
I mean, I think, I can't remember specifically, Ryan, but just knowing how well my bowels move now, I think I was probably constipated quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think I definitely was going days without having bowel movements. So, and that would make sense based on what I know I was eating.
Cyst.
Oh, I had a cyst one time on my left wrist, right?
Right. And we now know, like, cyst in your arms and stuff, it means it's usually a blockage of your lymphatic system. So.
And not that eczema necessarily is an indicator of disease or cancer, but eczema is obviously something telling you that it's trying to communicate with you that, hey, your body doesn't like something you're doing. And I had been dealing with eczema on some level for 13 years.
Yeah.
And what's crazy, man, is then when we did our big blood panel in the very beginning, it revealed that I was pre-diabetic, that I was high risk for heart disease. And of course, we're focused on reversing thyroid issues,
low testosterone,
testosterone. Yeah. And so here's the crazy thing. Like, I mean, obviously we weren't necessarily concerned about those things. We were concerned about reversing cancer. You know what's crazy, man? And it's Charlotte Gerson. I never forget what she says, that she believed her dad figured out that in most cases, maybe not all cases, I don't want to just have a blanket statement here, but I think in many cases when we heal one thing, we begin to heal everything. And you know what, dude? I don't have eczema anymore. I'm considered normal on my blood work. I'm not anywhere. I'm like perfect from a diabetic standpoint. I don't have thyroid issues. No heart disease risk anymore in the sense of, like, outside of just being a human. And, like, that wasn't even our goal. Like, we weren't even trying to get rid of those things. They just happened as a byproduct of being focused on healing overall. And that in and of itself, to me, is something that ought to fascinate all of us. I mean, like, that ought to wake us up in the morning and make us want to learn more about that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I got done recently reading Healthy to 100 by Dr. Wolf, Dr. Detox. He does a great job of laying out, exactly how, again, not to make a blanket statement, but how you can basically trace everything back to a few core issues and, find some similarities. And yeah, just reading that book, I had to stop myself every 10 minutes from wanting to, get up and make a smoothie or something. Just, But yeah, I couldn't agree more with the sense that is something that everyone should be really fascinated with, and just, pay attention to all those little things, everybody, because, just keep digging and see what you find.
What if we could be excited about all that? It feels like so many people are just so down in the dumps about sickness and disease and illness and like, what if we could change our perspective, and like, what if it could be something we got into and it could become fun and it could become beautiful, and it didn't have to be the way I think so many of us look at it. And I'm talking to myself, like, I rejected the idea that I needed to even think about health and what I ate and all of that. And I had a wrong perception of it. And, thank God, though, I was able to wake up at the moment I had to wake up and needed to. And thank God it wasn't too late for me. And I was able to be radical enough that I get a second chance, is the way I look at it, man.
Yeah, the one thing we did from the beginning at Diagnosis is that I don't really know how we came to this point, but we always called it, we want Ryan to heal from cancer. We didn't just want to kill cancer cells. And I think that's a very big paradigm shift for a lot of people. There are many things that you can kill cancer with. I mean, conventionally, alternatively, there truly is. It's been proven. We can talk about it all day long, that there are things you can do to kill cancer. But it's healing the body that's going to bring the long-term health. And so that was the perspective that I don't really know how we took it so quickly on, but somehow we must have heard it or read it and grabbed it and had that mind frame at once Diagnosis hit to keep moving forward with healing.
Yeah, and that's it's exactly what I want to try to do with this show is, bring kind of those two schools of thought together, because yes, it is important to know, what's going to kill a cancer cell, especially for those acute situations, but at the end of the day, like you said, it's healing the body of these core issues that's what's really going to make the difference. And you guys have clearly picked up on that very well. And on that note, I guess, was it ever a consideration to go the chemo radiation route once you got that? I'm sure you got that suggestion from the oncologist. Is that something you considered much, or were you already familiar enough with the natural alternative route that you knew right away that's what you wanted to do?
I'll let Caroline answer first. I mean, I think we have two different answers, and I mean, it's just the truth.
Well, and I also want to know, if you guys were in agreement right away, or if there was some, time it took to, get on the same page, whatever both of your initial reactions were, because that's huge in itself.
Let me go first, and then you go. Okay, I can sum this up for you real quick. It was December of 2015. I was in the hospital because the fluid problem had gotten out of control, and I had already been more kind and respectful and just politely said, I'm not going to be doing, chemo right now, to my oncologist. And he came by and visited me and said, if you don't start chemo immediately, you're going to be dead within 2 to 3 months. And I looked him dead in the eye at 7 a.m. in the morning. I can remember like it was yesterday, from my bed. And I said, buddy, I'm going to die before I do chemotherapy. Okay. So that pretty much answers where I was at on that. I probably don't feel quite as strongly about it now, in the sense of, look, maybe there's a time and a place for it. Again, I'm not the brains of this operation. And, the little bit I know is, for example, I've heard Caroline and some other health people talk about how in a situation like, for example, testicular cancer has an incredible response to chemotherapy. Yep. Okay. Who am I to say that wouldn't be wise, or that I wouldn't potentially do that maybe in that case? Here's the way I would say it now. Okay. I'm not going to do chemotherapy in the way that they prescribe it most of the time in Western medicine, like I'm just the next patient on the conveyor belt. I might consider it in certain situations depending on the cancer, but I would still be going about it maybe in a lower dose. I might be going about it a little bit differently, and I would be surrounding it with everything I knew to do with Caroline's help and other health professionals on how to make sure I got the maximum a benefit of whatever it could do for me, and at the same time making sure my body was healing, knowing that there's got to be a lot more than just some chemo to help me get back to optimal health. Does that make sense?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're gonna do what you need to do to get the job done, and whatever the best educated decision that might happen to be for you is what you're gonna do.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Dogma aside,
I feel very strongly about the fact that what's most disappointing to me is that I don't feel like the system, and really on either side, I don't even want to just say conventional. A lot of times it happens in the alternative world is we don't take the time to personalize each cancer patient. It becomes too much about business or money, or I don't have time, or I don't want to take the time. And we don't take each individual person and understand there is some similarities, there are some guiding principles, but every person still is a little bit different. Everybody's in just a little bit different situation health-wise, but also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so I'm not here to alienate anyone. I'm open to all things. But yes, from the beginning, I somehow felt very, very strongly about the fact that it just didn't make sense to me when I looked at the stats. I had seen the documentary, The Quest for the Cure. I then, right in the same week I got diagnosed, they came out with The Truth About Cancer. Like, I'm a numbers guy. And when they showed what the real stats are on people that had done chemo over the last 100 years, like that just couldn't possibly be the answer. Maybe it could be part of an answer for some people. There was no way in heck that was going to be the answer for me to walk my daughter down the aisle. And she's 6. So I was going to have to live a good 10, 15, 20 years to be able to do that. And there was nothing out there that said, oh yeah, just do chemo and you'll be able to do that. So whether it was a little part of the solution or some part of the solution, there was no way it was the solution. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does. Yeah. And just to agree with you on something you said about the alternative and natural side of the fence. Yeah, it can be about business or, I find there's almost as much or more dogma on the natural side and closed-mindedness about different things, you could say, as there is on the, the mainstream side. So
I agree with that.
Yeah, there's definitely no easy answers.
You know what they have in common on both sides? They're human beings.
This is true.
So that same question about
when Ryan got the diagnosis, I quickly went into research mode. Based on the diagnosis that Ryan had, the conventional world has no cure per se. They will actually state that in other lymphomas that in the same family, but not the specific one I had, that there is a cure. So while I knew that there is a short-term ability to kill the cancer and stop the growth, I knew that long-term chemo was not the answer. And I knew enough because I had already for the last 10 years have dove enough into the health world for me personally that there's root causes of cancer. Like I knew enough at that point that Ryan just didn't get zapped with cancer just because he was unlucky, that there was roots behind it. So, and I knew that there was a lot of healing in food and in supplements. So I'm definitely a more cautious person. So had it been up to me, I would have done whatever Ryan would have chosen. So if Ryan would have looked at me and said, I'm going to do chemo and immunotherapy, I would have been like, okay, but can you please drink some juice and can we please take some supplements? And when Ryan said he didn't want to do chemo and immunotherapy, I said, okay, well then we got to do a lot of other stuff. So I realized from the beginning that it was his choice. And I think that's very key as a support person, is to understand that we can want the patient to do so many things, whether it's go do chemo or whether it's don't do chemo, do this. All the people on the outside have all these opinions, especially the loved ones have a lot of opinions with a lot of heart behind it. But it's still the patient's choice. Obviously, the difference is if you have a young child, it's a little different. But when it comes to adults, I chose from the beginning to let Ryan decide, and then I was going to do whatever I could do to support that decision. So I I have, I'm going to fast forward real quick on this. Eventually we did choose to do immunotherapy, but we still said no to chemo because for me, I realized that the immunotherapy could help us in the path. And I was knowledgeable enough to go, okay, I know what to do to minimize the effects of what the immunotherapy could do to Ryan's body. But I thought to myself, we just need the immunotherapy. We're not going to do chemo. So Ryan never did do the chemo combination. He did do immunotherapy, but we were very protective in how we even did it. So,
and truth be told, that took a long time. She wanted me actually to do it
right.
months before I finally agreed to do 8 weeks of it. And then I couldn't even talk about it for like 30 days because I'm so worked up and I was furious. I was angry. I was pissed off. I had every emotion you can imagine about just the system, the way people are treated, this epidemic, all these issues. And so it wasn't until I finally realized that, okay, I needed to know it was not chemotherapy. Like I had to have that was one time where I had to know for myself what I was agreeing to and what I was saying yes to. I had to know that immunotherapy, maybe it had some side effects, but it didn't have anything like, oh, it can cause another cancer, or, oh, it's going to just destroy your immune system, or, oh, it's going to kill all these good cells too. And so it was a process for me, whereas in other things on the more alternative natural side, I could make a much quicker decision and know that even if it didn't work, it wasn't going to do any harm to me. Does that make sense? And still to this day, Ryan, I literally just found out recently that one of my own family members feels like I had been lying for months because I say that I've done no chemo, no radiation, and no surgery, because they had not taken the time to even just put Rituxan, which is the immunotherapy drug I had done, into Google, where the first thing that pops up in huge letters is Rituxan is not chemotherapy. And they never took the time to really talk it out with me or anything. And they felt like it was chemo and that I had done it for 2 months and that I was out here misleading all these people. Like a close family member just recently said that. And I said, can we Google it real quick? And they're like, okay. And I Googled it for them and I put it up and they were like, oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Whoops. Big mistake.
That's interesting. Are you guys okay now?
Yeah. No issues. We're back in good. I mean, as good as it can be. Healing takes time, as you know. But we don't I literally don't have any hard feelings towards anybody that's hurt us. I don't have any. I'm not upset. I get it, man. We're human. There's emotions. There's fear. There's limiting beliefs. There's a lot of things that go into all of that. And it just takes us being brave enough to sit down, to talk it out, to be honest, to stop being so afraid of being real and listening to other people's points of view, and then not coming with all these preconceived judgments and ideas, and realizing that we've been filtering a lot of stuff sometimes through our own faulty belief system, because we all have a faulty belief system on some level. And it's really amazing. Like, it took a 7-hour conversation with one particular family member from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. to basically restore some things. But isn't it worth it? Like, what's one lost night of rest to have a restored relationship potentially for the rest of your life? I just don't. Let's go there. Why don't more people see it that way?
That's certainly an art form in itself, is dealing with all these side emotions and everything, that all the baggage that comes along with a journey like this that you did not, you could not have seen coming right away. But it is something you continually have to ask yourself if you're managing that side of things for yourself, the best you can.
Hey, one quick final thought on the whole, did we agree on everything? So I think this is kind of funny now, but there was a time actually when we were back at Chipsa Hospital at the end of January, and I was starting to feel a little better, and I'd been really, really bad, bedridden for 3 weeks. Anyway, I read this book. We ended up meeting the author over in San Diego, and I got convinced that just eating fruit alone was going to heal me. Like, I literally got in Caroline's face. We bumped heads, we got in a huge fight, and I literally stopped all treatments, all IVs, all supplements, made us go home a week early from Chipsa Hospital, and I didn't do anything but eat fruit for like 18 days. I would not take a pill. I would not do a coffee enema. I would not do an IV. Okay, but there was maybe not for 18. I'm just saying, like, I was convinced.
Getting after it on that fruit.
I can't imagine how many times she must have had to bite her tongue, or how many times she didn't want me to die, but she just wanted to kill me at that moment, And so, of course, I came back to my senses and softened over time. But I like sharing those things. When you have an amazing recovery like we've had, I really believe people get sound bites. They get sound bites because they don't read every post and they're not fully into comprehending all the stuff we've been sharing. They don't read our blog in chronological order. They're not listening in real focused attention on all of our videos. And so I think the overall impression is everything went well for Ryan and Caroline. They're superhuman. Nothing ever went wrong. They never get in any arguments or fights. All their family members just worship them and agreed with every decision they made, that type of thing. So anyway, I think it's important for people to understand we had some bumps in the road.
That is very important for people to understand that it's a marathon, to use the cliche, but it's how you respond to all these things and keep going and keep working through it. That's what's gonna make for success at the end of the day. And actually that's a good segue into, I was curious that, you're obviously not the first person ever to eschew chemo, radiation, and surgery and make it out the other side. But I don't know of a whole lot of people that have documented it in such great detail from day one, the way you guys did. And I was just curious what inspired you to do that so early on.
Well, what people have to understand, Ryan's always been a public person in the sense of, we used to have an LLC called Authentic Steps because he realized years ago, I can't remember at what point, that he wanted to be free to be him, to be real. And when we first got into business, we were all about, you wanted to hide your crap and only highlight the good stuff. And then that started changing probably in the late 2000s, near 2010, I would guess, where he thought, no, I'm just going to be me and I'm just going to share my life, the good and the bad and the ugly. And that was something that Ryan had already doing, whether it was on Facebook or when he met with his friends. He always wanted to be authentic to the best that he could. Obviously, no one's perfect, but he was always willing to share the bad because he realized when he would share some of the bad, people could relate and it would help others take away that feeling of everyone else is perfect but me. So that really just translated into the journey of cancer. I'm much more of a private person. So at first it was like, okay, you're going to put this all on Facebook. But then interestingly enough, by Ryan being free to just share on Facebook as he was going through everything, I also found something that I had never known about me ever. And that was that I decided to start a blog. The blog was really seriously just for, I thought, our family and friends aren't always on Facebook, and there's definitely some of our family that's not on Facebook, but I like for them to be updated, but because I don't want to be responding to text. And the first few times, it was just an easy way for me to kind of, in all honesty, as I wrote some of those posts, it helped me to understand how I was feeling and how we were doing things. So Ryan opened up the door via Facebook to be open, and then just simultaneously, somehow, I just able to just be free then on the blog to just write things out as they were coming at us. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think she pretty much said it. I just, somewhere in the last 6 years, I just decided that the best way to live for me was to just be an open book to the best of my ability. It comes with some extra criticism at times. It does its own set of headaches, but I would say the healthy response that comes from it far outweighs the unhealthy responses that come. And the love and the energy and the support and the healing and the community that you build. One thing that I get probably more than anybody I know is people will say, I just feel like I already know you. And they've never met me. They've never sat down and talked to me in person. We've never had a conversation on the phone. They've literally somehow got this intuitive feeling from just Facebook that they feel like they know me, that I did it from the beginning. I mean, who the heck documents while they're going through the whole freaking life? I mean, like that's got to be like a Guinness Book of World Record for something, right? I mean, and it really turned out to be, look, here's the bottom line. One of the books I believe I'll write in about a decade is how being public with my journey with cancer catapulted me into every dream I've ever had since I was a kid. Literally.
Yeah, I mean, just from a practical point of view, it is interesting that the more you share and the more that you talk to people and the more you write about what you're doing, it really helps you figure things out better than I think you would have otherwise if you're just reading everything and trying to figure it out. And I don't know. Yeah, there's something about kind of reporting on everything that really gives you a better sense of, I am doing this and this is why I'm doing it and feeling good about it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one little thought that just popped in my head is it also ended up becoming a great help to me because the food addiction part was really hard for me. And I did a lot of sneaking.
A little more accountability.
I ate a lot of crap food when Caroline wasn't around or when I was out and about. And listen, I'll be honest, okay? I started thinking about all these people watching and all these people looking on and all these people wanting inspiration and hope and believing that, what if this could work? And what if I ever got cancer? And I started thinking, oh my God, what if I'm sitting at Smashburger, cheating and eating crap food and somebody walks in? And I'll never forget, dude, it happened. I was at Subway one time after a dentist appointment and I was eating crap food and a lady who I do not know came up to me and was like, oh my God, you're Ryan Luelf. And I had like, cheese pizza and a frickin' turkey sandwich and chips and lemonade.
Yeah, you were eating fresh, right?
And I didn't feel condemned. It wasn't, and I just thought about that and I thought, my life matters and it's going to matter to a lot of other people, and not that I have to do it for them, but it really did help me actually want to just do it for myself more. And then that's when I developed the thought, and it's one of my things I say now often, and that is, if our example is not powerful enough to inspire others to change, then our words will surely fall short.
I like that. And on the note of just how helpful, the whole public thing has been for you, I know that you guys have been incredibly successful with fundraising and being able to afford all this stuff, because that's the one question I think we get asked more than anything is just how did you guys manage to do all this stuff financially? And I do have some practical tips for people, but I always just say at the end of the day, if you're really committed and you really believe in what you're doing, you're going to find a way. But that being said, you guys have found a way to do it, I'll say, better than most people have. And just I don't know, any practical tips for how to afford all this stuff, how to raise money for all this stuff that you can distill from everything you've done would be, I know it would help a lot of people.
Yeah. So, you know, for me, when Ryan said, I'm going to set up a GoFundMe, we're going to fundraise, is immediately that tugged at my pride. I was like, I knew we couldn't afford it. I knew to even think about going to a clinic or to even think about going to any out of state, anything was going to cost money that we didn't have. So the first thing is getting over the pride issue, which took obviously me longer than Ryan. But second thing is that people do want to help. And when they understand that there's a specific need, we did have obviously the GoFundMe open the whole time, but we specifically fundraised when we had specific needs. And that really helps people to know, like, okay, the reason they're asking for money is because, in our case, was the first time when we went to Mexico to clinic there, or this, you know what I'm saying? Like, and we always were able to give our audience, our followers, people who loved and cared about us, the reasons why we were fundraising. I really feel like Ryan was very good at making that happen, because I do see fundraisers all the time that said they just need money. And my first question, just because I'm human, is, well, why do they need money? It's not that I'm questioning the fact that they need money. I'm questioning well, was it for? Because there are times for my own self, when I see someone say a specific need, then it tends to tug at my heart if it's something that I want to support, versus just being hey, we just need money. No, it's more of, this is why we need money, because we're trying to do X, Y, and Z. This is how much it costs, and that's why we're asking for it. So you can take from there, Ryan.
Yeah, so I'll just rattle off some tips that served me well. Number one is I think I just understand from my sales and marketing background that you have to already think ahead of the objections people are going to have on why they wouldn't take action on what you're requesting. So what are those objections? Well, what's the money for? How much do you need? Do I get a tax write-off? Is it easy for me to give online? Do you have, and then some people, it mattered to them, well, I don't want to do GoFundMe because they take a percentage. So is there a way I can get it to you where you get 100%? Which clinic are you going to? What supplements are these going to pay for? Which IVs are you getting? And what clinic is that at? Like all these objections, like I was just really able to think about what would stop people from giving. Okay. I don't have the money. I don't really want to give to you. I have too many other things that I need to give to. I forgot. Like I thought about all those. And so everything I did, from a text message to an email to a Facebook post to a private message, all of those things, I was thinking about my wording and the way I put it out there. And I was basically trying to overcome all of those before you ever even had them. So I would say things like, hey, if you don't want to donate money, we need essential oils. If you don't want to donate money, we need organic fruit. If you don't want to donate money, we need chiropractic care. If you don't want to donate money, I need to find a place I can use a sauna. So a lot of the fundraising we did is people started saying, I've got a sauna you can use. Somebody donated free chiropractic care for a while. Somebody came along and said, you can come and get a free lymphatic massage. Some people dropped off sacks of fresh organic fruit, and we would just tell them which ones we wanted. Some people sent bottles of frankincense, essential oils. I found all these creative ways to help people feel like that they could be involved, that they can contribute. And I gave them, all these reasons to give. And I verbalized over and over and over again, there are no expectations. The universe is big enough that if you can't help, you don't want to help, you got too many other things your money's going to, you're not in a position, please do not feel bad. I'm going to find a way. I'll make it. It's really, I'm not upset at you. I'm not counting on any one person to do it. And so that got communicated in every post, every text, every email, every video, and it does something to us on the inside. And I would even be real transparent. I'd say, look, we don't even need the money. If you want to send it directly to CHIPSA, or you want to pay for my infusions at Dr. Taylor's, or if you want to whatever. And actually one time somebody actually on their own contacted us and said, would you please give me the name of the doctor in the clinic for these next 3 weeks? I want to cover all those treatments for you. And they just paid the clinic directly.
Wow.
So do you see what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't generalization. One time when we got really, really nervous and we decided we had to go back to CHIPS, Ryan, we literally needed 25 grand in like 72 hours. Like, we knew I had to get over there fast. I needed 24/7 around the clock. Anyway, I got this idea. Why don't I ask 250 people to donate $100? And I built this whole Facebook post and said, would you put a yes in the comments if you're willing to donate $100? And if you want to do less, it'll still help. And if you want to do more, put like, if you want to do 300, put a 3 in parentheses, okay? And dude, I'll never forget the night. I'm in my recliner. Caroline's in the living room. We're living at my wife's grandparents at the time. And we hear these fire trucks and sirens outside. And like, it literally freaked us all out. And we didn't know what was going on. And next thing you know, here came like 9 firemen from the Jinx Fire Department. We lived in Jinx, Oklahoma. And they came in, it's emotional. And they came in that night and somebody had seen the Facebook post and they got 9 yeses and they brought $900 that night. And
wow.
We raised $25,000 in 3 days and we went to Mexico and saved my life.
That's that's incredible. That's incredible.
Sorry, man.
No, I know how it is. Trust me.
You don't think about those things until you ask me these questions, and then they pop up, and I just remembered that for the first time in a while, man. That was a touching night, man. You know, one other quick story, if you don't mind. So, I had this massive fluid problem. I had a catheter put in. And when I got the catheter put in, there was a breakdown in the communication with our insurance company about home health getting us these kits. You had to have a new kit every time Caroline helped me drain the fluid out of my cavity around my lung. And I had to have it drained one day, and we were out of kits, and we could not seem to figure out how to get the damn home health care company to get them to us. So I just asked on Facebook. And again, to me, this is how the fundraising works, that people – they have so many limiting beliefs. They have so much pride. They're so worried about trying to figure it all out instead of just putting it out there. So I put a post out there, and a friend of mine in Oklahoma City said, well, I'm in Oklahoma City. I'm a home health nurse, and I have a bunch of those kits at my house, and I'll just give you a bunch of them for free, but I can't get them to you. So then I put another post out, and I said, is there anybody traveling from Oklahoma City to Tulsa by chance that would help? And somebody that I don't know notified a friend that they know that I had never even heard of, and that person had never even heard of me. And that person decided that, and they fibbed, if you will. They didn't tell me that they weren't really having to come to Tulsa, but they made it sound like they were. Yeah. And at 11 o'clock that night, a lady and her 2 sons showed up at our house with these kits. But that wasn't all. She showed up with a box of supplements of all these amazing things. A lot of them were things I was using that we were doing. Essiac tea, turmeric, who knows what was all in there. And come to find out, Ryan, she had lost her husband a few months earlier from cancer. And these were leftover things that they didn't get a chance to use because he passed away. And I think, did she have 11 kids? 11 or 12 kids. And wow. She wasn't really coming to Tulsa. She drove 100 miles one way at 11 o'clock at night just to bring us the kits. Oh, and it gets better, dude. She leaves the house, and 20 minutes later, Caroline's going through the box, and she had left a Ziploc bag with $900 cash in it for us, too.
Wow. Be public, give people lots of options, and make everything very goal specific are a few things that I heard there.
Yeah, awesome.
And real quickly, I want to start getting to what you guys did specifically, but how did you amass such a following on Facebook so quickly?
You can answer from your perspective.
I'm not sure. Something we saw recently was, Ryan said this to me. He said, if you're authentic, people will follow you because they like you. And if you're authentic, people will follow you because they're curious. Not necessarily because they like you, but they're just curious. They're just like, so in all honesty, from my point of view, yeah, we already had a lot of friends on Facebook per se, but obviously that went way high all of a sudden. But I think people were really like, is this guy crazy enough to do it? Is this guy? And I think and they realize that people have no idea how many people are truly trying to overcome cancer naturally and healing from it and actually having success. Like the stories that we now know since, it just blows my mind all the time. But hardly anyone's willing to be public because it does come with side effects of negative people along with it. So Ryan is one of the few people that kind of was willing to be brave. And I think people wanted to see the story unfold because they were rooting for him. And there were people that wanted to see this story unfold because they thought Ryan was crazy and it wasn't going to work out. So I think just that curiosity of going, wow, someone's willing to be open about it through it is what kind of got that audience to grow.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan, if you want to say something.
No, I was just gonna ask what you had to add to that.
Yeah, so she said it beautifully, but this is the truth. When we put ourselves out there and we're real and we're raw and we're transparent and we're authentic, some people will like you and love you. Some people will hate you, but everyone will watch you. And the truth is there are way more people watching the journey than we'll ever know because they don't ever like anything. They don't ever comment. They've never messaged us. We'll never even probably get a chance to talk to them or meet them or ever know. But there is a natural curiosity, whether we love or hate something, that when someone's brave enough and courageous to put it out there with no idea how it's going to turn out. Like I could have put all this out there and I could be in a box right now. You know what I mean? And people might say, well, I wouldn't put it out there because if I'd ended up in a box, I would be worried about the aftermath of my wife and kids, right? And people could have even thought, man, he didn't even love his wife. I mean, if he dies, think about all the shit she's going to have to deal with afterwards, you know? And the other thing is, and this is just an opinion of mine, but I think when you're sick, your full-time work is fundraising. That is your full-time work. I couldn't physically work, but I had a phone, and with the internet and because of social media, whether I was stuck in my recliner or bedridden or hell, even while I was doing coffee enemas, I could be texting, I could be emailing, I could be Facebooking. And on a practical level, one of the things that I learned, well, a few things I learned that helped Facebook really explode is videos are a big deal, okay? So I got a lot of traction. Like I made this crazy video in my car the first month I got diagnosed, and the next thing you know, 200,000 people had watched it, you know?
Wow.
And then the other thing is the algorithms work based on engagement. So I spent hours and hours and hours during this journey interacting with people, talking to them, liking their stuff, because when you interact on their post, it causes them to see your post. So that played a massive role. And then the other thing is that I just put it out there a lot. Like I err on the side of over posting and doing more than probably what is necessary. And it worked.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm certainly coming to find with social media in general is it is kind of like life in that you get exactly what you put in, you get out of it what you put into it. And you know, like you said, the more you can get out there and be interacting with people on their turf, like you said, it's going to come back to you. That's that is all very good advice. All right, I do want to find out what you guys actually did, so to speak. If you still have some time to hang in there with me, or you got to get going.
No, go ahead, Caroline.
What do we not do?
Well,
think about a couple of the little ebooks you just worked on, and a couple and maybe just give a couple of practical things, babe.
Well, I'll tell you what, there was a lot of trial and error, and then, hindsight's always 20/20 when I go back and I go, why did we ever stop that? And then why did we ever do that? So what I'll do is I'll tell you a few things that I learned along the way that we did do successfully. The number one thing we did successfully is that the moment we got the call from our primary care physician that he was very certain that Ryan had lymphoma and that it was widespread and it was already bulky throughout, Ryan looked at me and said, okay, what do I need to do? And my gut instinct was, well, we need to start juicing and you've got to eat more fruits and vegetables. Like, that was my knee-jerk reaction. So I was like, I knew enough to know that. So even though Ryan had a couple months through this process that he didn't quite stay on that bandwagon very well, he really from the get-go was really trying to obviously increase his juicing, his fruits and his vegetables from the beginning. So that was the one correlation that I have seen from people that heal from cancer is that they changed what was being put into their mouths. That's just across the board. It's like a no-brainer. Number two is that when things went well is when I would always focus on the things that seemed to work across the boards. So there are things like vitamin C infusions. You can go to PubMed and you can go to medical, American Medical Board Association type research papers that have proven since the 70s how effective vitamin C is, whether via IV or via liposomal, about the incredible benefits of it. So that's like one of those no-brainers. Like, you find the commonalities. So another one would be turmeric. We just found some common things that they just work across the boards. And then what would happen though is that we would get messages of people be like, hey, have you heard about this? This lady took this for like 6 weeks and she was cancer free and it works and and there's this hype.
Or all the catchy headlines that start flashing by. Yeah.
So what I have definitely learned throughout the process was, our bodies are nature. I mean, we've been around thousands of years as in the humans. I mean, we haven't really changed that much over these thousands of years. What has changed is what we've done to the planet. But food is food. Herbs are herbs. Plants are plants. Like, those things haven't really changed much. So if it's been working for decades, it's probably still working today. So when we stay true to more of the common things that will work across the board versus this new supplement that if you take this supplement, it will do X, Y, Z. It was, how do I say it? Hindsight, we realized that if we just stuck with the things that worked, it would work. One thing, for example, when Ryan got really bad in December, that I'm actually starting to work a blog post of helping people understand why Ryan did go, his health declined in December of 2015. So we chose to go to CHIPSA January of 2016, and we were there for an entire month. While we were there, Ryan was doing 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, vitamin C infusions, B17, Laetrile infusions, poly MVA, 5 days a week infusions. He was doing
PNC 27.
Hold on.
Okay.
That's the last one.
Sorry.
Sodium bicarbonate 5 times a week via IV infusions, and he was also glutathione pushes. So those, you can research those till they're common. They're well known to work. They have lots of research and history behind them. But then we were like, the new fancy drug was called PNC 27, and it is stupid expensive, has no real track record, and just a bunch of people trying it out. But we had some friends that, in their goodness of their heart, were like, you got to try this. This is like, it's supposed to be
the cure.
It's the cure. It really has a lot of potential. It costs a lot of money, but you got to do it. So Ryan, literally, his body responded while we were at CHIPSA. He I hope to be able to write this out soon, but what people don't realize is that Ryan was dying before he got to CHPSA. And while he was at CHPSA, I, had emotion again. I didn't know if he was going to leave Mexico alive. So basically, CHPSA helped provide him. And so while we were there, Ryan got better. And when we left, I wasn't for sure what it is that helped him. But because of blood tests, because of now I've seen all his genes and what's proliferating, and I've learned a lot about Ryan, since I learned that the PNC27 drug had no hope of helping him because it was targeting things that had nothing to do with what was causing Ryan's cancer to grow and to be. And it was everything else, the vitamin C, the B17, the poly-MVA, the sodium bicarbonate, and the glutathione pushes. That's what revived Ryan, and that's what's been around a long time. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, there is customization. Ryan needed a lot of help with his liver, but at the end of the day, it was the things that have worked a long time that continue to work today. So people kind of have that in the back of their mind. They can help themselves from getting scammed, like we got scammed out of a lot more money in March. And they can help themselves from spending, money that was unnecessary because they were looking for that miracle thing. Because it's not out there. It's just not. So hopefully that kind of helps you there.
Yeah, so I'm curious what tests exactly you were looking at and what you were looking at in those tests that helped you determine that certain things were working and other things weren't.
So there's two different ones. We did choose to do what's called the RGCC test, which is also known as the Greece blood test. It's been around for over a decade. It's literally out of Greece, Fiona, Greece. And these oncologists and medical professionals there over a decade ago wanted to figure out what chemotherapies would actually have the higher chance of actually working for each patient. And they were able to formulate these ways in their laboratory to figure that out. Well, they've had some success with that. Well, they were able to also translate that on the alternative side. They go, well, if we can figure out what chemotherapy drugs work on a cancer cell, why can't they figure out what alternative things like vitamin C or poly-MVA or wormwood, those things would work on a cancer cell. And so these tests that were developed, they not only show you what conventional therapies might work, what immunotherapies might work for a patient, what alternative therapies might work, they also show you a lot about the genes and what's proliferating and what's the high risk, what genes are being affected in the body that's turning the cancer. And so in there, I was able to realize, that you have the P27 gene, then there's the 53, there's like 3 or 4 of them. And for example, with the PNC27 drug, it was targeting the specific gene. Well, Ryan's genes in that specific area were perfectly fine. So targeting those genes wasn't going to do anything with this PNC27 drug. So that was easy to then to go back and go, oh, that big chunk of money we spent in January on that drug did nothing for him. But we showed that, of all things, in Ryan's test, they test about 60 or 70 alternative agents. Yeah. Vitamin C, poly-MVA, B17, all showed high effectiveness for Ryan. And here's a little secret.
Ones you always hear about. Yeah.
A little secret here. I've seen a lot of Greece blood tests, and by that I mean a couple dozen, not a ton. And every one of them, to a different amount, different percentages, show effectiveness for vitamin C, poly-MVA, and B17. So people are pretty safe using those. Now, there's way more that Ryan could use that are effective for him, but it was kind of really, when I saw that test, I go, well, that's why he got so much better in January, because he was doing that 5 times a week.
Wow.
So, and then we also do micronutrient testing.
Hold on, one thought. Isn't there like a really wise person back in the old days that said there's nothing new under the sun? I just thought I'd throw that in there.
I may have heard that before, yeah.
Yeah. So the second test, we test Ryan's micronutrients every 6 months. And we realized, now that I've learned how to read them a lot better, I realized he had a lot of deficiencies. And of course, it showed that his liver needed a lot of help. So I was able to realize that glutathione is obviously huge for the liver. And then poly-MVA has what's called alpha lipoic acid. Well, alpha lipoic acid is huge for the liver. So Ryan was doing things that were killing cancer, but that were also helping his liver, which is what Ryan was struggling with in January. Was he had a lot of liver issues. So that was kind of how I hindsight was able to see what worked and what didn't. So
sorry if I missed it. What's the name of the micronutrient test you were taking? Or you're using?
Well, the one that we use is through Spectra Cell Laboratories, and you can actually Google Spectra Cell micronutrient testing. We have to order ours through a functional doctor here in Tulsa. It may be different in different states, but it is available for just about anyone.
Gotcha. And how much of your research would you say is like you said, trying to figure out the best things that are across the board have the most proven efficacy and history and all that, versus were you looking at were you doing much research on Ryan's specific lymphoma cancer? Were you researching much on that, or was it more just cancer in general and then Ryan's specific tests?
What I've come to learn is that while each cancer is specific to each person, the reason why they're okay, one of my beliefs is that one of the reasons they're different is because cancer patients have a lot of deficiencies. They also have a lot of toxicity. So when you think about it that way, you have to kind of figure out where these deficiencies are coming from. So over the time, I've learned that there are common deficiencies, like, Mayo Clinic a couple of years ago came out with quite the research paper showing that vitamin D, being deficient in vitamin D is very relative to cancer and diabetes and all kinds of stuff. But they were talking about how most cancer patients are vitamin D deficient, and vitamin D is a big part of your immune system. So I kind of learned that at first I was all about lymphoma. Like I got to learn about lymphoma. Then I realized, no, I just need to learn about how to overall kill cancer and how to heal Ryan. So that helped me actually to let go of the lymphoma and just go, okay, Ryan has deficiencies, Ryan has toxicity issues. And those two are very broad in and of themselves. So, toxicity comes in many forms. So that is where the work is to find where the toxicity is or what's causing the toxicity, whether it's root canals, or it's the water you're drinking, or the chemicals you are breathing or absorbing. If you're really close to, or you're in a lot of radiation, high radiation. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. So cancer, yes, they're all very specific, but they all have a lot of the very commonalities, and they root in deficiencies and in toxicity. So
Ryan, I want to say a couple things here, because I think there is two parts in overcoming something like cancer. Caroline's done a fabulous job of talking about the physical part, the knowledge, the learning about deficiencies, understanding how to help the body heal, regenerating organs, killing cancer. Like, all of that is so, so important and vital. And I'm not sure any of us can ever get where we want to go from being, given a terminal diagnosis to being able to get back to optimal health without that part. The other part, though, is, and I'm reading a book right now called You Are the Placebo. And I'm just going to brag about myself for a second, okay? I'm just telling you, if you go back and look at my pictures, if you go back and read my post, I just read another one today. Dude, I am smiling. I'm flipping convinced I'm going to live. I'm making videos like I already knew this day was going to happen. I mean, I'm literally talking as if like I've already beaten it. I'm visualizing that I was going to ski. I've got, a painting in my room, and I looked at it every day for over a year, right? Like, I've thought about being on the stages that I've already been on and I'm now being asked to speak on. Like, I literally knew in my gut. I would look at her, Ryan, and tell her, Caroline, I am not going to die. It ain't going to happen. So just keep searching, keep figuring it out. We'll get the answer. We just got to be patient. Now, listen, at the exact same time, though, I was also brave enough to lead her and I to go there. And we visited our deepest, darkest fear, and that was we didn't have our heads in the sand. We were realistic about the possibility that I could die. So it wasn't like I was ignoring or denying that it still might happen. But yet I was so convinced. And it was the same with fundraising. She'd say, Ryan, we're getting low on funds. I'd say, don't worry about it. Trust me, right? Because I knew I was emailing people. I knew I was texting. I knew I was asking. I knew I was putting it out there. And she would be like, and then she'd come to me like a few days later and she'd go, where'd this $5,000 come from? Or, oh my gosh, like $3,500 just came in to GoFundMe. Or, hey, Pastor Greg just called and he said there's like $4,000 worth of checks at the church, And it was the same thing. I was just so convinced, and no amount of opposition, no diagnosis, not getting scammed out of 45 grand, no scan, no blood test, no family member in my face, nothing could convince me otherwise. That is the truth. Like I'm telling you, if you think I'm strong physically because of all what I've been through, you have no idea how much stronger my mind is. Sure. Like there is two elements. And here's why I know this is true. Because I know of people, famous people, okay, that they're winners. They've written books. They get the mental side of it, and they're all dead. You know why? Because they didn't know all the physical stuff. They didn't know the body could heal. They didn't know about natural, alternative, incredible healings. They would have had it. I know they could have made it, right? And then there's people that know all about all this stuff, and they're losers in their minds. They have limiting beliefs. They have a low self-esteem. They don't love themselves. And so they can do all these wonderful natural healing things, and they still end up in a box. It's both. We got to learn and educate ourselves, and we've got to keep moving in a direction that continues to untap this idea that we are so much more powerful than we've ever even imagined. And I still think that about myself. That's why I'm reading a book, You Are the Placebo, and I already reversed stage 4 cancer, and I still think there's more.
Yeah, and I think just listening to that little monologue right there is going to help a lot of people. Are there any other books or programs that you found helpful along the way in cultivating that mindset, or is this just something that's come pretty naturally to you?
Yeah, we recommend the book Dying to Be Me by Anita Moorjani, who's an incredible author and a cancer survivor herself. I think it's a must read, not just for people dealing with cancer, but the support person. We've even had our 11-year-old son read it and had him write a 1-page summary on it. I think everyone should figure out how they're going to tune in to Rob Bell, robbell.com, read his books, listen to his podcast, devour everything that human being puts out. I don't even care if you agree with it. He will open up the possibilities of you connecting to whatever you believe in, God, Jesus, the divine. There's a spiritual aspect to all of us. And I think we all know that intuitively, no matter what our belief is. And he will not offend you. He will leave room and space for wherever you're at. And he also wrote a book called How to Be Here. And it's basically how you got to live in the present moment, even if your circumstances suck. And I read it right in the middle of it. And I just think that's a really big deal. And then the last two people are, you can go to becauseofjesus.com. Definitely if you're a believer and you believe in God and Jesus and you're a Christian. Connie Witter's our dear friend. She's helped us so much. And then Andrew Farley's probably had one of the greatest impacts on my entire life, andrewfarley.org, about just understanding grace, God's unconditional love, how valuable and significant I am as a human being. And really, those are the things that guided me and guided Caroline and guided our family in the last 15 months.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll have to check those out. That sounds pretty good. I hate to. That was so inspirational, everything you guys just said, but I had a couple more of the physical questions. that I wanted to be sure to get in. You're pretty public about your love of fruit, and how important your high fruit diet has been to you. And that flies in the face of obviously what mainstream nutrition has to say, but it also flies in the face of what you hear about, on the alternative side. Not that there's a whole lot of agreement on the alternative side to begin with, but I'm personally getting really into, say following Dr. Seyfried and all this about how you should really be looking more at the mitochondria, and it's kind of taking it back to the Otto Warburg theory that cancer is fermenting sugar and glutamine as well. So I guess on that note, with that notion that cancer's primary fuel source is sugar, I guess one, do you agree with that notion? And two, if you do, how do you reconcile it with your diet? And obviously you're standing here today, so something had to have worked. I'm just trying to figure out what it was.
So prior to this adventure, I would have called me for myself. I was more of a paleo girl. I ate lots of salads, I ate meat, and I ate some fruit. And I try to keep away from the carbs. That was kind of my gist of my personal diet. So when switching, we kind of did more of a Gerson type diet, not necessarily all their meals, but definitely the juicing and the vegetables. And so that's still low on the fruit. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then when Ryan said, I'm going to go on an all fruit diet, I was like, what the heck are you doing, Ryan? No, you can't go off fruit. You got to have your veggies. You got to have your protein. You got to have blah, 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 blah. So on my intellectual side, because I'm more of that type of person, I had to understand fruit. Yes, totally agree. Cancer is fed by sugar, adulterated sugar. That's why when they do a PET scan, they put you with radioactive sugar, because the sugar goes to the cancer. Indeed. So definitely agree with that notion. What we have to understand is that we, as the world was created, the easiest, simplest, most natural form of food is fruit. Therefore, thousands of years ago, before all these studies, before all this research, before all these kitchens and all these skillets and all these ways to cook food and do food, guess what people did? If they were hungry, they had to go find a plant or something that gave fruit, and they would eat it. And then over time, yes, obviously they added other things, but fruit is the most natural form of substance in the entire world. There's nothing more natural than fruit, and you can literally just grab it and eat it. So how does that differ then with cancer? What we forget is that every other sugar has been adulterated. It has been processed or made, or it's been taken away from even the fruit itself. When you cook fruit, or when you change fruit, or try to whatever, you're changing the form of the fruit, the structure of the fruit. So then the sugar is different. So what we have done is, yes, sugar feeds cancer, but your body cannot live without sugar. It cannot. You have to have sugar to live. Otherwise, everybody will die. If we completely took away sugar from our diets, we would die. So it is essential to our bodies. Therefore, what's happening? Well, most people, the US FDA and CDC have stated that most people aren't even eating their recommended 2 servings of fruit a day. So let's think about that. If those people aren't even eating their recommended 2 fruits a day, yet cancer is become just an epidemic in our world and in the United States, how can we relate that to fruit? No. Sugar intake in the form of processed foods, in the form of soda drinks, in the form of adulterated fruit, in the form of everything else that's not a real fruit, that's the sugar problem. Because when we eat fruit in a whole, it's got enzymes, it's got everything it takes for your body then to process it correctly as we need it. Every other sugar does not. So when researches have been done, they have not actually gone, well, the sugar from fruit, from natural whole fruit feed cancer, or is it sugar from everywhere else? They've just lumped everything in. I can get passionate about this for a while, so I'll just end with that. It took me a while to get to this, to really grasp it. That was not something Ryan and I agreed on a high fruit diet for several months. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to learn, I'm going to study, I'm going to read. And when I started truly understanding it, I was like, oh.
Tell them what you came and said to me recently. Yeah,
a while back I said, Ryan, thank you. In some areas, you really messed up by not listening to me. But fruit. But when it came to fruit, I'm really glad you didn't listen to me. And I'm still at times have to kind of work because I was so not a fruit believer. But now that I'm the more and more I read about it, it's like a no-brainer for me. So hopefully that helps.
Here's my answer, Ryan. Results have a way of standing in the face of human doubt.
Sure does. Yeah, and that's always my first question is what type of glucose is being studied in those studies, and I would have to think it's probably the adulterated stuff.
Yeah.
On one other question on that note, do you practice much time restriction in your when in the day you eat and when you don't?
I mean, other than I usually don't eat anything typically before 10 a.m. and I, for the most part, stop eating at 7 so that I get 15 hours of intermittent fasting. Between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m., I just eat when I'm hungry, and I just eat until I'm satisfied. The other day, I decided to document through doing short Facebook Live videos every time I went to eat something, and it turned into 6 videos. So I guess I probably am eating 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day between, and actually a lot of times it's even 11 or 12 before I start eating. So, I've got that 7 to 8 hour window, and I just eat as I want to, or as I go, or as my lifestyle allows. And I don't try to overeat or anything. It's just, I'm hungry, I get some more fruit. Once I'm kind of done with fruit, I transition to smoothies. Once I've had a few smoothies, I transition to my greens and veggies. And once I'm, realizing that, hey, my body needs some fats, I get in some avocados, some nuts, seeds. And Caroline's helping me understand that as I just started working out again, and I'm lifting weights, and I'm getting back into shape, and I'm doing yoga. So I'm going to make sure that I'm totally replenishing. So I'm going to try to increase. I'm not going to try. I'm going to increase my nuts and my fats and my seeds at night. And I do it in that order: sugar, salt, fat, in that order for optimal digestion, energy, and health is kind of the way we look at it, because fats take a little bit longer to digest in the system. So if I eat them at night and then I give my body a break for 15 hours, it helps that stuff get a chance to go through properly. And then because fruit is the highest energy food, it's great to start your day off with that because, you've been around me a little bit, Ryan. I got energy all the time, dude. Like, don't I? I mean, it's not like I just conjure this up and fake it to put on a podcast or a video, dude. Like, this is just how I am. I live this way.
You've got a little bit of energy, yes. But no, and that's the reason I ask is, 10 to 6, 10 to 7, something like that. That is a much smaller window than I think most people are. We're all brought up thinking that we got to get up first thing in the morning and get our breakfast in at 6 or 7, whenever that is, and then you bring it to the other end, and a lot of people are eating up until 10, 11 o'clock whenever they go to bed. And it's just something I've been toying around with personally is, I think by shortening that window, you're probably ramping up your metabolism, and your body is probably, taking in all that glucose before it can get to the cancer cells. A lot better than somebody who's just kind of chronically eating all the time.
Right. There is a difference to people that want to incorporate fruit into their diet. If you're first eating a bunch of processed cooked food and then you're going to stuff fruit at the end, there is concern about that, because then fruit is a fast it's fast. Like you can eat fruit and you can
It digests within 15, 20 minutes.
And you can go in the bathroom pretty quick. I mean, we all know that about fruit. So that is where people get things mixed up, is they want to add fruit to their diet, but then they want to also eat all this other processed food with it. So they're stopping the fruit from
doing its job,
doing its true job. And that would be the one and only concern about fruit, is that if you're going to eat all this bad crap, well, eat the fruit first, then eat the bad crap. Don't eat the bad crap, really. But
don't eat the bad crap.
Yeah, don't eat it, but eat fruit first. That makes a difference.
That's pretty good. All right. Got a couple listener questions here. Maya wanted to know what type of water system you guys use at home.
Just because we're running out of time, please just go to terrytillert.com. We can make sure you know how to spell it correctly. We trust him. Caroline's listened to over 20 hours of his audios. She did 5 to 6 months worth of research. We decided a home water system was important. We're just a big believer in clean water. We're not going to get caught up in all this extra stuff. How about just clean water? Like just get all the bad stuff out. How about we start there? And when we realized our skin was our largest organ, it became more important than just our drinking water. And honestly, from an economic standpoint, we feel like we got more bang for our buck having an entire home system than we did just getting something for our faucet in the sink in the kitchen. And then can you explain just the other little thing we use that structures it that also you believe in?
Yeah, so I echo Ryan. Clean water is more important than anything else. You can have all these great systems that alkaline your water, that can structure your water, that can do whatever you can think of water, but you got to have clean water, because if we're structuring chlorine or we're structuring fluoride or we're structuring chemicals, that ain't good. So number one is getting clean water, and you can get that via house system, via under-the-counter systems. You can put chlorine filters in your shower to just as a starting base. And yeah, I am a believer in structured water. I think that's more of a plus. Primary is clean, because there are some there's research I've seen out there that I'm not making any claims, but there is something with structured water that supposedly helps even possibly get radiation to pass through. It helps your body absorb the water easier. There's some research out there that says that if you're drinking structured water, then your body will actually be able to absorb a higher potency of your supplements. I still do a lot of research on that. It's one of those things that I hope it's all true. So why not? It can't hurt. But clean water is the most important.
Well, and the theory behind it is it kind of mimics the water you'd find in nature, right? Like just flowing through a stream, which yeah. All right. One silly little question that I'm going to ask everyone on this show is, if you had to sum everything you know up about staying healthy, disease-free, into one golden rule, what would that rule be?
I'll make her go first.
Wow. One thing. I guess I would say is love yourself enough to do what is best for you. Because when you love yourself, you'll find your way. You'll find what that means for each individual person. So
the only worthwhile goal for any of us in this entire existence on the planet is to discover joy and unconditional love. And when you find that, the rest is pretty trivial. We get so caught up in things that until we found unconditional love and joy, they might make a small impact, but they'll never really truly allow us to fully embrace the beauty and the gift that being a human really is. The truth is, we had a 4 trillion to 1 chance of even being a human in the first place, versus a tree or a dog or a piece of metal or whatever. And if that's what's floating around in your thoughts, is that this is such a gift, it's such an honor, I'm so blessed. I don't care what you've been through, how many obstacles you're faced with, the tragedies that occur. No one's trying to deny that it's not hurtful or painful, or that it's not terrible, or that you don't have to mourn or heal or talk it through or whatever. But the only worthwhile goal is to find joy and unconditional love. But when you do, it's a really great life, even in the midst of really tough stuff.
Good answers. I like it. All right. What's next for the Luelfs? Where are you online if people want to follow along and see more of what you're up to? And if there is anything that you guys have coming out or that you're working on that you want to let everyone know about, please let us know.
You can find us on the web at theyololife.com. That's the blog. And then healwithryan.com is the website. Obviously, we're both on Facebook. And moving forward, we continue to, we didn't stop just because a PET scan said there's no active cancer visible in the scans. We have kept going on with Ryan's programs. Obviously, we scaled a few of those down that are not as don't need as much, but we keep going on our health lifestyle. This is going to be a lifestyle for us, for all the whole family. And we just look forward to sharing a lot of wisdom through our blog and our website and Facebook. And we have a lot of things coming up, so stay tuned.
Yeah, you can go to facebook.com/do you own your life. That's my profile. And I'm maxed out on friends, but just hit the follow button. And then here's a secret tip. Hit see first. You get 25 of those. Find 25 pages or 25 profiles, I don't care if I'm on the list or not, that you love their content. Put them on your see first list, and they'll dominate your news feed, and it'll change your life. I taught this to Caroline recently, and she said, oh my God, she actually likes Facebook more now because she's actually reading the stuff that actually brings value and goodness and wholeness to her life, because she's intentional now about what's coming up on her news feed. So just hit follow, see first. My profile's public. It allows you to like, comment, share, inbox me, no guarantee of a response. And she already mentioned the websites. And I'll just tell you this, the one big project I'm going to finish in the first quarter of 2017 is I'm going to put together a very practical course broken up into 10-minute or less segments on all the things I know and I've learned and have helped me fundraise to offer to the world for those that to need to raise money to get through their situation.
I was hoping you were going to say something like that. That I think is going to help a lot of people, and I'll be sure to put that in the show notes of this episode. Whenever you do make that available, we'll be sure to get that out there.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for spending a long time with me, as it turned out, but there's a lot to cover.
This in a few parts. One part 2 show.
We enjoyed it, man.
Yeah,
we really are just grateful for your friendship and love that we got to spend some time skiing together and coming to your house. And once I launch my podcast, you have to return the favor, okay?
There we go. That sounds good. Yeah. Ryan and Caroline Luelf, thank you so much.
See you later.
Wow, what an incredible interview. I told you guys you were in for a treat. So much information coming at you from all different angles. Ryan and Caroline really make such a great team. Just so well-rounded, and it was so neat to get to hear their different thoughts on everything and how they came together to heal Ryan's stage 4 advanced lymphoma cancer that they were told would be impossible to do, and they actually did it without chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery, it's incredible. There's so many points that I want to emphasize and really drive home, but just a few. Just the notion that they mentioned early on that healing from cancer had the side effect of healing basically all this other stuff that was wrong with Ryan, his eczema and just all these other problems that he had that weren't really on the front burner, but they happened to go away. So just the notion of healing your body, getting yourself well, and that is going to resolve, what needs to be resolved. Just can't be stressed enough. Writing out, I think I mentioned this in the Chris Work interview, but writing out what you're doing, the practical benefits that come from just really clarifying that in your mind for yourself, and then additionally, just how much, can be done if you do get public with your story. Try to put yourself out there as much as you can, whether that's online or just in your community or both, and just really putting everything out there without needing to have it all figured out of what's going to come from it. But just so many incredible benefits can come from putting yourself out there, and specifically monetarily, the Luelfs did so well with fundraising, and I wanted to just emphasize the a few of the key points that Ryan made. Just if you didn't take those notes already, please do. The specific need in fundraising, making sure to actually tell people exactly what you're trying to get at that time, as opposed to just we need money in general. Asking for things in lieu of money, asking for particular supplements or, payments to health clinics or hospitals or what have you. And, not having any expectations of any one person. I think that really helps people just feel okay with what you're doing, and it also helps you feel okay. Anytime we had any expectations of any one particular person in our journey, it always seemed to always not work out too well. So just, putting yourself out there without the expectation of anything in return from any one particular person is huge. And lastly, just the point that Ryan made, that if you're authentic, people are going to follow you and want to help you, either because they like you or just because they're flat out curious and want to see this thing through. So one way or the other, just the more genuine you can be and putting yourself out there and asking for help, the better things will go. Another thing I really want to emphasize is just the concept that they mentioned, that in hindsight, the things that you always hear about, some of the basics, the turmeric, the vitamin C, poly-MVA, all those kind of things that are time tested, have a whole ton of research and testimonial behind them. They're that way for a reason, because they really are the things that are going to work the best in most circumstances. There's always customization that can be done, but it's with all this information out there, it can get tempting to just go in all these different exotic directions and leave some of this basic stuff behind. But the basic stuff is the basic stuff because it's the basic stuff. So just be sure that you're doing those things that you always hear about, because you always hear about them for a reason. Also, just the concept that, every time Ryan spoke, it was about something to do with his mental game. Caroline was on all the physical stuff, but he really made a big point of having his mind tuned up, and that's huge. And this isn't just for cancer patients or someone trying to heal themselves from a chronic disease. This can be for parents and caregivers and the like as well. Just don't underestimate the power of, as cliche as it sounds, positive thinking and just having your head in the right place and having a mission to do and all that good stuff. It really is more powerful than I could ever describe to you. I also just wanted to note again that, this high fruit diet that flies in the face of both conventional and most alternative schools of thought. I don't really have the answer there, to be honest with you. And I'm recording this after having recorded 8 or 9 interviews already at this point. And some of these later interviews are with people who argue the exact opposite. That this metabolic theory of cancer is, glucose is such a big factor of it, and you do want to limit the glucose because that is the primary source of fuel. And, when those people say it, it makes a lot of sense too. So again, I don't really have the answer. I think if you really want to know where I'm at right now, I think they're both right, to be entirely honest with you. I think that, there is a whole lot of value in ketosis. There's, all these studies on ketones and what they do to the epigenome, what they do to cancer cells. A whole lot of stuff that really can't be ignored, that you're not going to go into ketosis, at least I don't think, on a high fruit diet. But on the other hand, this notion that Ryan and Caroline mentioned, that fruit is almost the quintessential, most natural food you could ever imagine. Going back thousands of years, that really needs to be taken into account as well, and a lot of weight put behind it. So I think, going back to rotation, honestly, I think at this point, my philosophy is rotation. Maybe a ketogenic diet for a few months, a high fruit diet for a few months, a raw vegan high juice diet for a few months, something like that. I don't have all the answers, of course, but I think that's where I'm at, in case you wanted to know. I also wanted to hammer home that see first list that he mentioned for Facebook. It was just last interview, I think, that Chris Warwick mentioned unfollowing your friends that are always posting those negative stories and just depressing thoughts in general. This would be taking it the other way and actually customizing the pages, the people that bring you the most informational and inspirational stuff. And I would challenge you to put this pretty high on your priority list, to just really customize the information that you're downloading every day when you get onto that thing, and it can really make it a really positive experience in ways that you can't even imagine. And maybe you want to put My Kid Cures Cancer and probably Ryan Luelf as a couple of those top 25. And lastly, I went back and forth on whether or not to say anything about this at all, but since I do consider myself to have a pretty strong faith and it was brought up on my show, what the heck, Ryan mentioned this Rob Bell character on the religious spirituality front and encouraged us to check out the information that he puts out. I hadn't heard of the guy at the time and have since stumbled onto a couple of his interviews and listened to them, and also clicked around on some of the information that he puts out. And I did text Ryan recently to let him know that is not my cup of tea. And I also challenged him to check out my favorite religious, spiritual, that sort of thing podcast, which would be Canary Cry Radio. So I'm sure the next time the two of us get together, we will have a lively and civilized debate on those sorts of things. Just my 2 cents, not to turn this whole thing into some sort of religious debate, but had to throw it out there. All right, I think that's going to do it for me. I got so much out of this interview with Ryan and Caroline Luelf. I hope you did too. If you did find this information to be valuable to you, make sure to share it out with all of your friends on Facebook, Twitter, etc. And that is at mykidcurescancer.com/Ryan-Luelf. Again, mykidcurescancer.com/Ryan-Luelf, and Luelf is spelled Luelf. That's also where you can get the show notes for this episode, the links to all the resources, the books, the supplements, so on and so forth that got mentioned here. Again, wanted to remind you about Patreon. If you feel like buying us that cup of coffee every month, you can find that at mykidcurescancer.com/crowd-sponsor. Be sure to head over to Facebook, give us a like there, subscribe on the YouTube channel for all of these interviews, all of our in-person interviews that we do at conferences that we're not posting on the podcast, and so many more how-to videos on just all things natural health and healing. As I mentioned in the Chris Warwick interview, normally we're going to be putting these interviews out once a week on the podcast, but for this grand launch, you can expect another interview on Wednesday, and that's going to be with Robert Scott Bell. We're going to be talking about just why it is that a lot of your conventional mainstream doctors have either never heard of a lot of these natural treatments and healing methods, or at least they don't put a lot of stock into them, and just the history behind how we got there, and also how to implement homeopathy into your healing regimen, which is something that's been a bit foreign to me this whole time, so it was really neat to clear some of that up. All right, I think that's going to do it. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's really an honor to bring this information to you guys, and I really hope you're getting something out of it. Good luck, Godspeed.